Hello, welcome to the Federal Interview with talented and award winning actress Padmapriya. She is a founder member of the Women in Cinema Collective, which is instrumental in bringing out the Hema Committee report in the Kerala film industry. And we would like to welcome her. Thanks for joining us, Padmapriya.
Hi Kavita, lovely being here.
Yeah. Okay, firstly, I would like to ask you, what is the mood in the Malayalam film industry today, considering the fallout of the Hema Committee report? How is everybody taking this report? And is what the WCC expected, the fallout?
Um, I think it's for us. It's been at least now a 7.5 year journey, right? It started in 2017, and then there's been so much that has happened. I think there's a lot of shift, at least within Kerala. I think this narrative needs to be asserted that while there is on one side still a kind of a sense of denial, the shift is very evident from 2017 and to 24 for us. The shift has been primarily on two counts. One is that within the industry, a lot more people acknowledge that our conversation is about equal space and gender is justified and valid, and that the industry needs to proactively kind of uh, reform that process. So there is, and this this I'm basically saying is not just at like an actor level or anything. I'm like talking about people who are assistant directors, upcoming cinematographers, light people. So like across the conversations have changed. Also in 2017, when we were asking for reformation and like systemic change, at that point nobody like really like paid heed to it, especially the unions and associations. But today, in spite of the fact that one particular association's like entire committee kind of resigned, in spite of that, there have been like very rigorous conversations with the trade unions over the last 5 years. Actually, small changes have been brought about. I'm not saying that we have gotten to where we have to, but like there is a churn, and that churn is for good. In that churn, sometimes the reactions can be mixed. Some people will continue to be in a state of denial and will not go with the change, and some others will push more aggressively, and some other will just flow with the tide. So I think that's what's happening, and I think that's a great move. I think one great credence has to be given to Kerala media, which has also grown from 2017 to 24 in reporting our cases, in the sense that most of our conversations used to be like, oh, this is a controversy, this is a scandal, this is a victim, and this is something which is relegated to hush hush rooms, and the culture of silence and of exaggeration has moved from how to be sensitive when we're talking about gender, how do we deal with sexual allegations, both with respect to the survivor, more sensitively towards the survivor, and also to the allegedly accused? How do we bring about a conversation on systemic change? How do we understand power, nuances of consent? I think that kind of understanding amongst the public has really also pushed the industry to accept that change is inevitable. So I would say that the mood, I have a lot of colleagues, for instance, from the industry who messaged me, and even now when we are putting up the code of conduct, we're running a 2 week campaign in WCC, in spite, saying what are the reformations we think are necessary to be brought in. It's not new; we've talked about this before, but we're kind of also putting it in the light of the Hema Committee report's revelations. And it's interesting the kind of comments which come, feedback which comes on saying that we should include all genders, all sexualities. I think that kind of idea of diversity and inclusion and its need for it in the creative space, and acknowledging that cinema is a workspace and not just like some makeshift thing people come and parachute in to get out, is something which is a great change. But we have a long way to go until we actually fructify the larger goal of professionalizing the space.
I see. And what did the WCC want from this report? What did they expect to happen actually?
I think quickly I will just take you through
Yeah.
everybody's journey, because a lot of people don't know how we came to be formed. And we were like, so we came to be formed actually in the event of the 2017 assault of our colleague. I mean, and we came in actually together as a support group. And so we said at some point we have to meet the CM to like make sure that she gets the right kind of legal, because it's a public prosecutor run case, that, the state gives her the right kind of legal support, and what else we can do, like, because it's such a new thing, like you don't like
Yes.
you expect that you will go through something like this, and you have, and I don't think criminal jurisprudence or courts is something that, or hospitals for instance, right, these are not spaces that we engage with or want to engage with. So and that, I think, in a way has been a great thing for all of us, because we've now been more aware of our rights, and therefore also improved understanding of everybody around us and about their rights, and therefore their duties as well. And so that's how we came about. And then we were like supposed to meet the CM to like submit a like set of demand, like, requests for the survivor. And then we said, why we just started conversing about our lives. And it's fascinating that in a matter of 2 hours, where we were just twiddling our thumbs and trying to figure out what to do, to like about 15, 20 feisty young women, not just young women, women of all ages, who are like very feisty and outspoken, kind of started talking about their experiences. And we realized that the harassment of being, the gender inequality plays out in different ways for different people, but at the same time the experience is something very similar. And so we were like, why are we cutting ourselves short? We don't know, because we were set, we came together in a way when such a traumatic incident happened. Not everybody wanted to join us, or or wanted to, like, because it is a lot of effort, right? And so we were like, okay, how do we like gather more understanding of how our industry functions from a gender's perspective? There was an Adur committee report which was formed to kind
Mm.
of revamp the Cinema Act of Kerala, which was like really dated, and they had made some recommendations about the way the industry works and how to streamline it. But there was no gender perspective to it, and we thought that it was essential, given we form such a large part of the population, even if that's limited to, like, I mean, I think at least about 50%, 40-50% of us are women actors. But in other trades, which are about, like in cinema, just for everyone's understanding, we have about 30-40 different trades, not like any other unorganized sector, like say construction, where there's laborer and like maybe like 5, 7, 10
Yes.
maximum skills. They're very diverse kind of skills, from catering to like cinematography to acting to directing, like
Makeup, makeup.
yeah,
Mm.
it's a magical world, right? Like how a film gets made is actually so fascinating. And that's when we realized that we don't even know, like we were not even representative of that entire spectrum of trades. And so we think it's important that before we recommend anything, we have a few recommendations. We had a few list of recommendations, but I think we what we wanted to record was, what is it that people, what are the problems people have? Because unless we
Mm.
acknowledge and understand what the problems are, there's no point in going towards solutions and recommendations. And actually, when the Hema committee's, recommendations were released by the government in, 2000, like 4 years back, when we were actually asking for the release of the entire report, the reason why we're asking for the release of the entire report while kind of protecting the privacy of everyone uh, was broadly two things. What are the issues women face in the film industry, in the Malayalam film industry, and therefore what's the way forward? That was the expectation. The expectation was not. The expectation is not to kind of, it's to actually progressively see how the industry can move forward to create an equal space and equal opportunity for all. And today we see that, as the experience is being leveled out, like I think there are lots of, like, at least there are 30 trades and 17 crimes in total,
Mm.
17 issues, sorry, not crimes, 17
Yeah.
issues, which traverses across very kind of human right, constitutional right violations, and of course other criminal violations, that it
Yeah.
makes you understand that there is a space of vulnerability and power hierarchies which are at play, which needs to be evened out and balanced out, so that there can be a far more fairer access to workspace. And I
Just to
think that's what was
understand, sorry to interrupt, but just to understand what the
yeah.
issues were. That was the main thing, right?
Yeah, what
Basically.
issues were, yeah, because
Yeah.
see what was also happening, I think, because we were formed in a very, during a very traumatic incident, and we were asking of our industry to act on it, and they were refusing. Like there was severe denial. Like, the denial today you
Mm.
see is like far lesser. Was very
Yes.
high. We thought that it's important for for an outside person to actually have an outside in perspective of it.
Yes.
And just like the Adult Committee report was set up to say what are the issues the industry has and what is it that we can do legislatively and otherwise as a government to kind of resolve and move forward. And so that was the purpose of the Hema Committee report, and it's pretty clear the range of issues that are there across a range of trades. One thing is very clear, that women are vulnerable across trades, whether they
Yes.
are like the top level female star, or it's a junior artist or a person washing utensils on set.
But
I think
one
that.
of the issues, sorry, Padmapriya, one of the issues is about women who are coming into the industry believe the casting couch is the only way to get into the industry. So this was one of the issues that people are
Yeah.
constantly bringing up, right? So what do you feel about that? How do you demolish that myth or that view?
It's not a myth. I think it's not a myth. I mean, at least in my case, it's been a very different scenario because I came into the industry not wanting to become an actor.
Mm,
But I don't think that's the case with most people. Most of the
okay.
people, and I also had the privilege of being both literate, having a job outside of cinema. I mean, I was
Yeah.
working still my first four
For
films,
G
like
capital, G capital. Mm.
yeah. So I was like really, I was like, I have this. So there is a sense of security and assurance that stepping into the industry. And let me also reiterate, it's not just Malayalam cinema. Casting couch is an
Yeah.
issue, and when I say casting couch, I know immediately people think of actors, but let's say the couch is used from people across the board, which is very clear from the Hema Committee report, right? And which is why I say that when you become vulnerable, so people, like, there is a huge proportion of daily wage workers in cinema, for instance, like extras, junior artists,
Yes.
and that cuts across genders, light persons. These people are dependent on earning this money so that they can survive. They're not just doing it for the craft and the art of it, it's also the business of it for them. So, for a lot of these people, there is a natural, and it's not like everybody has access to the producer,
Mm,
because it's so much chaos on a set. So there is like a junior artist manager. So you're then like basically tied to getting a job based on what the junior artist manager or coordinator says to you. And what does the producer do? They just sublet and subcontract that job to them, because they clearly cannot be like selecting every, like suppose there are 200 people on a particular frame. They cannot be like really selecting all the 200 people. There'll be a broad mandate given by a filmmaker saying these are the kind of people, this is how they should look, blah blah blah. And I'm just giving the example of junior artists, right? Or like say dancers, singers. Like there are lots of like different spaces where people are coming from, and because it's like an unorganized space where people in are coming in and going out, that there is this potential for exploitation of daily wage workers.
mm,
Now there is also it's also a space of extreme intimacy. So if you look at, like, for instance, a director and a assistant director's relationship, it starts from like pre-production, when the story starts, to the time when they start looking for locations, and then when the actors come in, the actor workshops happen, and then you go on set shooting.
yeah.
It's a crazy life. And you have to be like intimately involved in the creation of it. So
Yes.
there is a natural hierarchy and power that the director exercises on an AD, because your relationship on this with this person literally determines what you're going to get as your next film.
Mm,
And so what happens is the more we are making our our recommendations, we're realizing that these are issues which cut across genders. Even whatever solutions that we are recommending, and if whatever comes out in fruition, is not just going to benefit women, it's going to benefit everybody, because power hierarchy affects everybody, but it affects disproportionately far more women, because of the fact that there is this, apart from money and apart from the abuse which happens verbally, there is this potential for sexual exploitation. And that
mm,
completely ruins the fabric of our existence.
yes.
So the casting couch is not something which is restricted to actors. It goes beyond
Yes.
across trades, which is very evident from the JHC report. And therefore, like, because we actors constitute the maximum female participation. That's something which is like, quantifiably seems like a far bigger issue, because there are more women who have, say, incidents of casting couch, then more women would have come out or have even the privilege of coming out and saying, I'm having a problem with my makeup artist as a hairstylist, or I have a problem, as a junior artist, or I have a problem as, there are not enough light women, unfortunately, yet. But, or
Yes.
they're not like, or female ladies coming out against their directors. So I think that this needs to be understood, or even singers coming out against music directors. We've seen this, right? Because they are very intimate creative spaces, and they're also daily wage
So
spaces.
how do you handle this casting couch issue then?
I don't think we should look at it as a casting couch issue. I think the
Okay.
industry needs to streamline and professionalize as a workspace as a
Yes.
whole. Right now, for instance, there are absolutely no contracts or release forms in place. Right now, for instance, there's no clear definition and mandate on who, like, for instance, one of the major human right violations was people not getting the same kind of food, asking them to get food, standing under the sun for 18 hours, not being told to go back if they have no work. I
Oh,
think that there is, because there is no understanding of what's a call sheet. The call sheet is not a call sheet, is basically a document which is which basically tells you what's going to happen in a shoot on that day.
yes.
So typically, if you look at productions outside India, I'm not just talking about America and stuff. Call sheets are shared with everyone. So people and the logistics are organized as per that. And this is only better for the creative process, right? Because you're going to save on
Yes.
cost. You're going to like. So I mean, professionalizing a workspace is not only going to reduce power hierarchy. So the minute the information is available, nobody can feel like their dignity is affected,
Correct.
right? So there are many ways of resolving this, but I think what's important is to understand, like, even for cast, like, if you're specifically looking at casting couch, there can be specific spaces which can be allocated. Like, for instance, if you look at the Tamil film industry, typically it is Chennai which is a working place, right?
Yes.
Or if you look at like Bollywood, it's Bombay. Off late, at least in Kerala, it's become Kochi.
Hmm.
There can be interesting government industry partnerships where we promote film industry specific spaces which are safe, which are posh, posh compliant, which sensitizes people about what most people don't even know what sexual harassment is or what harassment is. There is so much verbal harassment which happens, and people just think it's a, because it's a creative space, you can do anything. And that should not be. Like, I think professional working space should be empathetic and cognizant of the fact that we are all like working towards the goal of making a great story. So
Yeah.
let's like respect and recognize each person's role. So I feel like the solutions are very, I know I'm not sounding the thing is that most of these solutions are very counterintuitive, and what therefore is important. And of course, the mandate lies not just on the industry but also on the government, especially on legislative aspects, in terms of
Yes.
the fact that there's right now a lot of control which is restricted on just the trade unions and the associations, who, I think they do their bit. I'm not saying that they don't, but it's just that it's, it's a kind of a mandate of convenience.
Okay.
And that mandate of convenience is not useful when you want a streamlined process, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
systematically, film after film, we should expect that when you go on a set, this is what happens.
Yes.
That you have contracts that are, suppose you have intimacy scenes, then, there's a clarity on what intimacy scenes are. Is there a need for intimacy coordinator? Do actors go? Because this intimacy scenes, let me tell you, as an, at least as a female actor, I've actually seen my male actors being far more uncomfortable in intimacy scenes than myself, because it's just the background and the perspective you're coming from. No, you don't want to
Yes.
perhaps hug the other person. I'm not even talking about kiss and sex scenes. I'm like just
Yeah.
talking about hugging, because you
Yeah.
like have to get intimate and you have to express a certain emotion for a person. You don't find
But
where as
Padmapriya,
actors.
sorry,
Yeah.
but Kerala film industry has intimacy coordinators, right? On films.
There are intimacy coordinators. Nobody talks about it. And let me also tell you that these intimacy coordinators, or the idea of speaking about intimacy, is only restricted to the male actor and the female actor. Also, in most cases, not. I think in 2020 or so, there was a case against a pretty popular director on a major commercial film where a body double was used on the female actor when she refused to do that sequence, and it was all out there in the public, and they still used the body double and released the film
Oh, okay.
because the person who's seeing it is imagining that I am doing it, right? So you
Yes,
need
yes,
my consent.
yes,
So
absolutely.
like ideally it would be intuitive for you to say that okay, Priya would sign a film based on a script that she reads, so she knows what's going to happen in the script. It's actually happened to me. It's happened to me on a film set where I was given a particular story, and then I'm on set, suddenly I'm expected to do something else. It's happened to me a
Oh,
couple of times.
oh my God.
It's just so, like in most of my cases, because I actually speak with the director a lot before I enter on set. It's a far, but then the negotiation being left on the actor to do every time is not a fair act to ask, because many
Yes,
of the men may be even uncomfortable to speak about it being uncomfortable for them.
yes, yes,
And these are not intimacy scenes, are not just between top actors. They're supporting actors who have to sometimes do it.
yes.
And
Correct.
they come in for just a couple of days. They don't even have we don't have contracts. They don't even have contract. Where do they go and speak? When they come for a 2 day shoot, you're not going to a workshop or anything unless it's like a, like, so I don't think these are things which, which should be bartered about, which is why we have recommended something called a code of conduct. There's certain
Yes, I
things which
understand.
can be legislated. And we started with the code of conduct. Principally, we
Can you
have a
please
lot of
elaborate on what the code
yeah,
of conduct is all
yeah.
about, and how do you plan to set it in motion? These are the two questions with that. Yeah.
I think the second question is difficult, but I'll try answering the
Okay.
first. See, I think it's very important to recognize that there are a lot of regulatory and, like, you're talking about contracts, implementing the POSH, having some kind of a regulatory mechanism. All of this is important, and we have recommendations which are coming after that for them also. But we thought that it's very important to talk about code of conduct because even now, for instance, the Producers Association, there was a Kerala High Court WCC case where for the first time the High Court recognized that in an unorganized sector like cinema, the primary person responsible for anything that happens is a producer. From from development of the project till the end. So the implementation of something like an act like a POSH and any untoward incident happening, even if the employees are less than 10, actually rests with the producer. I think this is a landmark judgment, and we really underscore this. It's very important to underscore this
Mm,
because in an unorganized sector, everybody, like I said, trade unions and associations will keep passing the buck, you know
mm,
and fairly enough, which is true, legally they are, it's something which they do for the welfare. It's not that they're mandated to do. So it's important that it was important to legislatively pinpoint whom the accountability in the industry rests in.
mm,
And while we do that, it's essential to understand that while we can say that you have to pay the income tax, you have to implement the POSH Act, you have to follow these regularly, you have to title, you have to make sure that you treat animals kindly, blah blah blah. There has to be an accepted industry code of conduct. Like, for instance, there is an accepted industry code currently, whether we agree or not, that in Malayalam industry we work for 15 hours in a day.
mm,
In Bombay, in Bollywood, it's 12 hours a day
mm,
with every Sunday off or like something like that, with a week, 1 day off in a week, especially if you're working outside outstations, right? Out of the main like industry space. Now it's fascinating that industry standards can be different. It's very clear. The point is, how do you approach that industry standard? What lens are you approaching it with? And for us, therefore, it was very important to say that because many of our industry, people who are in position of power still do not want to accept, like the Kerala Producer Association came up and saying, we have implemented, I say, nothing. Nothing of that sort has happened. And they've happily kind of, ignored some of like 80% of the recommendations which the Hema committee recommends. And even the
mm.
Adur committee, many other reports,
Yes,
there are some, like we have ourselves come up with a WCC, with called the Sakhi report,
yes.
which woman status of women, which was done across 4 film industries, across
Yes,
different traits of women, and we kind of and varied forms of interviews, so which are much bigger sample size than JHC actually.
yes.
Of course,
And
we
which
didn't include.
shows that other South industries also have the same problems that the Kerala film
They have
industry faces.
similar problems manifested differently. So we can't do a
Yes.
cookie cutter, policy kind of
Okay.
implementation. But like yes, there is a recognition of these issues being there across at least the 4 southern industries.
Yes.
And we didn't include as many men as say the JHC committee could. So it's like so it's important to recognize that all of these recommendations that we are also coming about comes informed from all of these perspectives.
Okay.
But the producer association, for instance, in a state of denial says the Hema committee report is worth, is not worth to a cent. It's that we have already implemented ICs, there are toilets, there are caravans. Yeah, there are caravans for the main lead actor and actors, but like, what about supporting actors who are old, women, who they don't have changing rooms? What about mobile toilets for most of the other crew? Right? Because in my case, even in my last Malayalam film, which I did, which was in 2023, 2022 and 2022, my hairstylist used to come and go to the bathroom in my place because it was an external place outside the beach and the entire film was by the beach. So, but I cannot, but one caravan can only accommodate so many women, right? And hygiene is an important aspect. So I think they're just not being cognizant of the fact and dismissing of it. So for us, actually, to set the ball rolling and set the conversation running, it was important to say what is the code of conduct that we should follow, so that we are creating an equal, fair space, working space, healthy workspace. And the 4 or 5 aspects of it is there's should be absolutely no tolerance towards sexual harassment. There should be absolutely like zero tolerance to gender disparity, gender-based discrimination. That there has to be a cognizance of the fact that we are an equal workspace, and that there has to be empathy and these things. Like like when you go into a corporate, like I used to remember when I was in GE, it's a conglomerate, but the only thing that was taught almost every other day in our town hall was the value card. Actually, the value card is pasted right behind what our ID. And for us, it's very important that we start from this place and then we go to recommendations. The code of conduct also includes many other aspects. We've just started, it's a 2 week kind of online what do you say, like a campaign that we are running. So it also includes other aspects like streamlining the industry through uniform food, insurance, having film ID units. Like for instance, if I am working in a unit and I want to report a crime because they don't, or they have an IC, or I'm not safe in that, in the internal committee of that posh, then how do I go and say that this is happening in this production unit? How do we
Mhm.
streamline, then having IDs for employees? So like those
Mhm.
are like very
Also,
basic professionalization kind of things. Then there's
okay.
an aspect, yeah.
Also, Padmapriya, what about definition of sexual harassment? That is also very often not very clearly defined, right? A lot of people are
No, I
confused
think there are
about
a
it.
lot of interpretations, but in this day and age, I think it's pretty like clear, and especially with the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act,
Hmm.
2013, which clearly lays down guidelines for both prevention and prohibition as much as addressal and redressal of sexual harassment issues. The idea of sexual harassment is very, very well defined, and
Okay.
it ranges from disparaging comments. Actually, I
Yes.
remember seeing a co-actor, a colleague, a male colleague's interview. His name is Alexander, and he was very, very, he was talking about this experience he had in Bombay, where when his female co-actor came in, one of the other, crew members told him, "Oh, you both are going out for dinner, is it? Now that your female co-actor has come." And he said, "No, we like, he just let it pass. He did not know that, that was disparaging." In 15 minutes, supposedly, in exactly 15 minutes, he gets a call from the director saying, "What
Hmm.
the hell has happened?" Because, the lady has complained that this issue took place. And he was actually called by the director because I think the lady had called up her casting director. So there is a process in place. So,
Hmm.
and you see that, the issue could be like nipped in the bud. All that this boy would have done is because, all of these people are coming from a patriarchal society from outside to here. So sensitizing them, this is a workplace, this is how you should talk. You can't just like, they are not like, they may be on site, paired to opposite each other, but that doesn't mean that off screen they have to live the life of their on screen lives, and the fact that she could address it, it probably creates a sense of sensitivity. I'm like saying this is great for the industry. So like CCC, apart from including zero tolerance towards code of conduct, which is unethical and unequal, includes streamlining the industry through basic sanitization and professionalization of the industry. It also includes elements of how to regulate and use laws uh, through a government industry interaction effectively. This will all come through as we release the this thing. And also the code of conduct very clearly specifies the implementation of POSH and the responsibilities across the spectrum from the film unit up to the government. And lastly, more importantly, it says what individually as stakeholders, from trade unions to producers to filmmakers to directors, to government, to even the general what do you say, civil society can do to kind of streamline the industry. And I think that it is like being like, when I say that the shift has happened from 2017 to 24, it's not like just, I'm not just trying to make get golden brownie points here. I seriously mean the shift has taken place. It was so difficult to even have a conversation in the media without being slut shamed or without we being always called as victims. Even now there is a constant thing of trying to disreputate our this thing, but then immediately people, the wider public, says that okay, you're trying to invalidate and you're trying to change the issue and the conversation. Right, today you can actually have, we had an actor who came out who talked about how she was a sex slave, and this entire idea of informed consent. These conversations have become mainstream today only because of our activism. Would we like it to be done sooner than earlier? Like, I think 7 years is pretty fast, given that gender justice is not really played out very well in other spectrums in India. I think this is like clearly laying out a lot of paradigm, not just in film industry here in Kerala, but even across other film industries. Like we've seen what's happening in Karnataka now, what's happening in Bengal, what's happening in Telugu. But I was in a recent conversation in the network of women in media, and I
Yes.
was like fascinated that a lot of women from unorganized and organized sectors are seeing this as a set example of seeing how we can actually negotiate our rights and responsibilities. So it's not to say that we're going to be like perfect and this is going to be this la la land of equality. No, but if we believe that fairness is our pathway, then we will negotiate, have conversations across from the government. One of few of our members have gone to meet the Chief Minister of Kerala today, on a wide range of perspectives of what we are trying to do here, the pressures that we are also facing, and what we would like as a road forward. There is a Kerala film policy which is being drafted. I'm part of that. We're trying to see what we can do through that. There are trade unions and associations. A lot of our WCC members are also in trade unions. I'm myself an AMMA association member. I have navigated both through media and otherwise conversations in these spaces. And a lot of people are now saying ki bhai kuch to karna hai. Now, how do you move that lever? It's, that churn is part of the process. We should never say ki, okay, this has happened, now what next? It never happens like that. The pathway to, in the US, for slavery to be abolished, black slavery to be abolished, and for women to be able to vote didn't happen overnight. It happens through persistence. It comes at a certain cost of our time and patience, which can go into like making films and doing other things. But I think this is a very important juncture because we as creative professionals, through our stories, literally entertain and also hold the moral compass of the entire society. We're the ones who are the moral, and like the balm which kind of keeps and binds together the social and cultural fabric. So if we don't set examples, I don't know who would. So I think there is like there is a sense of responsibility, and within WCC we will use different kind of modes of activism through the kind of, fortunately we are in 2024 where law, the government, the policy, the awareness about these issues is far further than say in the 1970s and 80s, where our sisters played a far more difficult was a far more difficult space, and even media today is far more sensitive
Yes.
than it was say even 10 years back. So I think I think we should it's not like a it's not like a one stop thing. I can't even tell you it's going to happen 6 months, or this repercussions of what we do in the next 1 year or 2 years is going to have repercussions probably 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
We don't even know. But that process is something which will only come through discursive actions. It's not that, oh, we gave you a code of conduct, now you follow the code of conduct. It's not a reprimand, it's not a Hitlerian rule. It's something that we make cognizance of, make note of, accept this as our reality, as an issue that we need to resolve, and find a forge of way forward to break the power hierarchies that we have only created.
But should not Amma have done this? Amma should have tied up with you all probably and worked on this, but instead they have just shut the door and bolted. What do you feel about Amma's role in this after the Hema committee report came
I
up?
think one needs to really understand that AMMA is not the only association, or in the industry. There are other spaces like the Producer Association, there's a Distributor Association, there's FEFCA, which is an amalgamation of trade unions,
Yes,
and therefore we have far more power in
yes,
terms of who gets membership. And there are these really unsaid rules where until, like, even there was a case in the Supreme Court where a female makeup artist, I think in 2013-14, I'm not sure exactly of the year, but not very far off, finally got the right to work. There are these really unsaid rules which in the Hema committee, it's like women beyond 35 cannot act as junior artists, like serious constitutional violations which are happening and which are there, and therefore they don't get memberships, and therefore they cannot work, and there are unsaid bans. So there is, like, we have to understand that we cannot, just because actors are far more public and the bigger personalities, that we need to rest the entire responsibility on them. It's not that they are not doing anything. They are running welfare schemes. They are running things like, for instance, if I have an accident tomorrow, it's actually FEFCA and AMMA's, their welfare fund, not the producer, because we don't have
yes.
insurance in Malayalam. It's these associations which make sure the family and the person gets taken care of. Yes, people with more agency get more access to some resources than others, but more or less some of these welfare practices have been running. Now the point is, who gets access to those welfare? Why is it that you need to have membership to be able to work? All of those are secondary questions. So I'm just trying to address the fact that I don't think we should overrate the role of AMMA.
Okay.
Having said that, why is it highlighted so much? Is principally because the part of the power structure that the committee report talks about, the Hema committee report talks about, the Adu report also talks about, and the constant disconnects between associations and trade unions, that it says. And then there's a competitive council which has pointed out to these issues and given judgments against FEFCA's general secretary, and all of that. That's also reported in the GHC report and the Adu report. One of the key things to understand is that actors, especially male actors who wield a lot of economic power, are not just actors. They also play the role of producers and distributors and
Yes.
theater owners. And that's what makes them actually, like when I did a course on Sundance and production, one of the key things that we learned in our very second class was that the most powerful and the most underspoken of in the film industry chain are distributors. Because you can make a film. You can take your mobile, you can make a film. Even Kavita, you can make it. But who will see it? Okay, put it on
Mm.
YouTube. How do you get people to it? How do you play around with the algorithm? You need money. You need money to market it. You need theaters to exhibit it. You need OTT channels to publish it. You need television channels to pick it up. These are the spaces where the actors have, especially the male actors, have a lot of access to,
Oh,
which is what makes their say within the actors association more powerful, because a lot of people's ability to get jobs, and I'm telling you, it's not just me who's in the top of the line. We are this in cinema, there's an above the line and below the line. Above the line is director, key cast, and writer and producer. Everybody else, including the cinematographer, everybody, comes the
Below.
art director, everybody comes in below the line. Now the thing is that everybody in acting, including supporting actors and all of that, people who play like lots of roles, lots of people whom we love, right, seeing on screen, are all below the line people, and they all dependent on this almost like a daily wage. And a lot of their karta dhata comes from these few main male actors, even the female lead actors. But far more important for these people because of their lack of privilege. And even in female lead actors, not everybody may have the privilege like me. Let me reiterate. There are a lot of people who come from economically poor backgrounds and also with a starry eye that they want to become stars and actors, which is completely a fair ambition to have,
Yes.
just like them, just like our male colleagues, right? And let me tell you, many of the male colleagues also don't speak up because of that. So
Hmm.
this culture of silence stems from there,
Hmm. But
right?
that
And
is
everybody, at
harming
the end
the
of the day, they
center.
come here to work. They don't come here to like fight, and nobody is like here to complain and fight, including me. I'm not here in this cause because I want to fight. But I just want a peaceful, like Rima Kalingal had once said, I just want to get up in the morning and just go to work and come back. Can I just do that?
Mhm.
I don't want this to be like traveling in a public bus, knowing whether I have like a spray, whether I have a pin with, it's ridiculous. Whether I'm like physically like dressed right, whether I'm behaving right. I mean, I think that kind of a mandate is unrequired at my workplace, right? I'm as an actor, if I have to act, I should know my scene, I should know my lines. I'm just going and performing and coming back. And I'm having a great time doing that in a safe, fun, healthy space. Because we're making a film and it's a magical space. So I think that the entire problem with the MMA not taking accountability, especially the key people, stems from that place that people who could have actually brought about the change, or at
Yes.
least I'm not saying the entire spectrum of change. No, because it's a conversation across lots of people, right? And they cannot take, but they could be important levers, and even the ones outside the executive committee who are actually very powerful, the way they have kind of acted very dismissingly to the report is not something which is reassuring.
Like who
But
you're
what is
talking about? Sorry. Sorry, like
I mean, I
who?
don't want to take specific names. I
Name.
think it's really not necessary. But I think it's, the narrative is out there, and, people can search today. It's an open, information. If there's anything, there's too much information. And I don't think it's important right now, in public space and media space to like actually, for me as part of the industry, to be taking names. But I am just saying that, I mean, even the Producers Association and the way they have responded to the report, it's very dismissive. I'm saying like there is no point in being in a state of denial anymore, especially to the important levers of change. The producer and the production producers union is extremely important. Association is extremely important because the High Court itself today acknowledges that producer is the key responsible person. So if you
Hmm.
do not accept responsibility for change, who will?
Correct.
So, like the people in the important who have to like be part of that lever of change. But the great thing about, this is where the like the great amount of hope comes with people like colleagues like Alexander speaking about their experience in public space with the kind of nuance, right? Talking about sexual harassment at a totally different spectrum. It's talking about dignity at workplace. And when you start from dignity at workplace, you've got the entire other spectrum part of it, right? With colleagues like him, there are lots of them, both male and female, who are talking about it. And I'm not just talking about actors, I'm talking about ADs. I'm telling you, when we were making the code of conduct and streamlining, people said that in talking for basic rights of all, some ADs in some protest came, and said, you guys in WC are doing a great job. Can you include removing verbal abuse at workplace?
Oh.
Now we have
Hmm.
included it. It's fascinating. We are actually getting letters and emails, and that's the positive ray of hope, Kavita, because the narrative has changed. Everybody recognizes, like, I was invited for an event yesterday by someone, somebody came to meet me, and they're like, this happened. And they were like, so I said, what do you think of it? As an outsider. It's like, I don't think I'm an outsider. I'm in very much an insider because, tomorrow someone of my own family, I know a lot of family and friends who've been wanting to be part of the industry, and they should, right? And rightfully so, said that this should have happened long time ago. And that cognizance is extremely important because now being in a state of denial for anybody is only going to work uh, not so positively for anybody. So I mean, I think the wheel will only move forward from here.
And what do you feel about the High Court pulling up the state government for holding on to the Hema Committee report all these days? I mean, all these years, sorry. There was a report yesterday about that. What do you feel about that?
I mean, yes, I mean, we all have acknowledged that it's 4 years too late, but we've done that and gone there. I'm not saying that that's not a place for introspection. Of course, it's a place for introspection and also learning, not just within Kerala, but across, because now industries across like the country are asking for a committee like this to be set up. And I think as a precedence, what's happening in Kerala needs to be acknowledged. I must like give credence to the government that they went ahead and established this kind of a committee. When we went and met at the first place, we said we need a women's fund which can make which can kind of support films made only by women. Right now, I think 3 to 4 films made just by women has been released,
Mm,
thanks to the government's initiative. And it was like in 30 minutes the government set it up. So
I
the Hema
see.
committee report, it took up a couple of years. There were teething issues. It's also very difficult to understand the film industry. We're actually going to come up with the organization structure of the film industry. You'll be like surprised. I mean, you may have been on a film set, Kavita. It's like it's like madness. Like, how does this even get executed? Is like charming.
Yeah.
Um, while I do take cognizance of the fact that the delay needs to be introspected upon, I think there are far more important issues to address. Our concern with respect to right to privacy, especially with now the SIT and the HC order. What does it mean for survivors and even the perpetrators? Because nobody, like, the purpose in the TOR, the terms of reference for the Hema Committee report, as I said earlier, was to understand the issues of women and then arrive at resolutions. Not And that was supposed to happen with the entire privacy being considered as the main, like the privacy of the people who are coming and sharing their their problems, whether it be men or women, would be kept confidential.
Mm,
So now, in the light of the the High Court order and the SIT,
yes.
what is the approach towards survivors going to be? Because they never asked for this. So right
Yes.
now, till now,
That's
just
yeah, that's a
everybody.
question I have about SIT. I mean, are you all comfortable with how the SIT is progressing with
So
their
what has happened is that because until the High Court order came out yesterday, the SIT was only basically taking cognizance because it was a redacted report and it still does not have names of the people involved except in the annexures,
yes.
who have come, like who have registered their what do you say, or deposed in front of the committee.
Mm,
It's, but then it's very easy when you read the report as a whole, that non-redacted report. Like if you just say a film's name, you can figure out who would have been the
mm,
people and things like that. Like, I'm not just talking about actors level. Huh? Like if I say that in X film and that film is named, this hairstylist came up with this comment. It's sufficient to like track down, you know, and that's problematic. But therefore, it's very important to have right to privacy. We haven't read the non-redacted report, so I really cannot comment fully on it. But
yes.
these are a few concerns for us as to how the right of privacy is being maintained, because none of these, so far, the SIT which was formed was only addressing the open Me Too accusations which are coming out in the media. They were not addressing or taking complaints of the people in the HC committee report. So it's very different. I think it's very important to classify and differentiate between the both. In the HC
Mm,
committee report, people who came and deposed in front of the Hema committee and spoke about their problems, and especially to person like Justice Hema and Sarada and Valsala Kumari, who's also been part of the Vanita Commission for the Women's Commission for a long time, has been to like say that these are the spectrum of experience we've had. These are our problems, and also suggested recommendations based on which they have also drafted their report. But now they never asked, if nobody asked them whether they want
mm,
to go through this scrutiny. First of all, coming to a committee and talking, especially for sexual harassment issues, to somebody else, and their experiences being noted is a Herculean task,
yeah.
for the survivor. Then now to like make them go through um another legal exercise. I don't know how fair it is. Also, the second thing is many of these cases. would not stand the standard court trial,
Yeah.
in the sense that they're not enough proof, it's old, it's new, but it's not old, new enough. It could be something which is 6 months old. How are you going to have enough kind of, there were times when the POSH Act was not there, or even the POSCO Act was not there. So, how are we going to address these issues? And do we want the survivors to go through them? And if they do not win the court case, does that mean that their accounts are invalid?
Wrong. Yeah.
Invalid. Because they
Invalid.
came to their privacy and have a very honest narration of their experience for something which could lead to a structural change. Now, what's happening is, the
They're
entire
putting
focus
them
is
in the dock. They're putting them in the dock.
on a dog, and the kind of conversation is becoming restricted only to the sexual harassment issues. And as I mentioned right and through the interview, sexual harassment is a form of harassment of the vulnerable. Unless you solve the systemic issues, you're not going to solve the sexual harassment issues. And lots of these women, like for instance, I can definitely speak about the experience of one of my colleagues in WCC who went open about her experience in 2017. And she was very clear from the very beginning that I don't want to file an FIR. I only want a public apology. And the person came and made a public apology. Person again go through a court case, both the perpetrator and the survivor don't want to perhaps go through that experience. So I think like how the society is going to like respect the privacy of people whom all this report is going to be shared with, the non-redacted report is going to be
Yes.
shared with, it's going to have as a repercussion to their sense of privacy, is something which genuinely worries me and also WCC. It's
Yes.
not necessarily an experience which any woman or man, any person, perpetrator or accused or survivor, I would like obviously here only talk about the survivor, want to go through
Yes. Right.
or should go. That was not the purpose of the Hema committee report. If that was the case, I understand the state has its suo motu responsibilities, which it did not satisfy for the last 4 years. So to do it now and in such rush, I'm like it's difficult to comprehend why. But mm, but I think there's a far more like need for empathy and sensitivity, and approach of this has to be not the stick approach, but to like kind of I mean, I wish the High Court could like really define what a feminist approach to an SIT should be. So far, the experience of the complaints which have been filed, I believe, have been a bit rough. They have been forced and things like that. I mean, I think there was a
Yes.
letter which was put up by 70 members to the CM last week, including lawyers, cultural activists across the country, saying that because there have been accounts that even people who are non-WCC, there are lots of non-WCC members in part of that SIT complaints. And I think the experience of registering, of knowing their rights and whether they should go ahead with the process or not, I don't think is fully understood. So I think that clarity of right to privacy and respect for privacy and respect for acknowledging that the survivor's experience, I think is something which is of genuine concern. And I would want the government to move tread very carefully on that count. And it's a great opportunity for all of us to set standards,
Yes.
as to how, because this is not a standard okay, it's not a Nirbhaya case. It's not
Yes.
like the survivor 2017 survivor case, right? It's a clear case of workplace harassment where he said, she said kind of accounts will come out. And to provide validity to that in court is going to be so tough. So I think the lens of the government has to move towards systemic change as much as it needs to do its suo motu actions with empathy.